Greetings, everyone. Another episode here of Modern Christianity. Today's July 3rd, so we're going to wish everybody a happy July 4th. Got a few things to cover. A lot of the folks forget that there was a lot of religious persecution, and in the comments I'll put a couple of links that are completely harrowing about how people got just ridiculously mistreated by fellow believers, Catholics against Protestants, Protestants against Catholics. People have forgotten the history of this. One little story here I printed out was, they refused to compromise passionately held religious convictions and fled Europe. And that's the whole reason we came here, is for religious freedom. The New England colonies, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Maryland, were conceived and established as plantations of religion. Some settlers who arrived came for secular motives, to catch fish, of course, but they enthusiastically supported the efforts of the leaders to create a city on a hill, or a holy experiment, whose success would prove that God's plan for his churches would be successfully realized in the American wilderness. Isn't that extraordinary how we've lost that kind of spirit behind our country? This country, for many of the people who came here, was a religious experience. Here it says even colonies like Virginia, who were planned as commercial ventures, were led by entrepreneurs who considered themselves militant Protestants and who worked diligently to promote the prosperity of the church. The church is fundamental to this country's beginning, and this country's beginning is fundamental to the church. And we've lost our way considerably on that topic. Now, the 60s happened, and there's all these things that went down against the Puritan angle of the church. And the church has evolved. Much of it has. And what I've noticed also, as I'm looking back at the more liturgical churches personally, is that they have really taken a lot of the high ground in some of the more public debates that we have about, specifically inclusion in the churches, women in the churches, and that kind of thing. I think you'd want to look, if there's many flavors. We're not in the 1600s anymore. We have many flavors of Christianity in this country. We're all, in my view, and in C.S. Lewis's view, who's my mentor, is it's a big tent Christianity. And what people are looking at when they think about Christianity is looking back to the old stuff, to the 17th century, to the 18th century. They're not looking at modern Christianity. So what does it stand for, Christianity? Is it one a homogeneous thing? Absolutely not. It's all these different, have the evangelicals are still, not inclusive. You have, a lot of the churches are debating these topics. And what do you expect? If there's a conception out there of the Bible being this answer book, I think Peter Enns speaks about it. You'd have to be completely unaware of his existence to still think that the wonderful Bible is anything but. It's not a rule book, right? So if people are taking pieces of that and using it as a bludgeon, it's ridiculous. Sexuality. If people think that the way the evangelicals look at it is the only way, well, you just have to open another book where, and that's really all this is too, how the Irish saved civilization. We find out that the Irish had radically different conceptions. Irish Christians had radically different conceptions of what sexuality would go into. They also had female priests, and the author of that marvelous book, and I'll put a link in the description, it really concludes rather sadly, like, too bad we didn't inherit some more of the Irish version of Christianity. So Christianity is a living religion. It changes all living systems. One of the hallmarks of a living system is that it changes, it adapts to the environment. So let us not criticize the Christian or Christendom or Christianity for changing. I think that's a strength of it, not a weakness. And then you might say, well, Christianity has gotten a lot of stuff wrong. I'm enjoying my coffee with you here. Let's look at that for a minute, why don't we? So I chose not to use the Ten Commandments because they are rather old, honestly. I mean, obviously, right? And they're really, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not kill. There's some obvious things in there. And another list was created. You might have heard of it. It's called the seven deadly sins. Now, interestingly enough, those are not in the Bible. And no, I'm not talking about the anime. I Googled it, and that's what came up all over the place. It looks wonderful, by the way. I'm a big anime fan. At least my daughter is, and I try to be. Oh, anyway, so if the preposition is that Christianity has gotten too much wrong to be followed, I will counter that with this particular document. I pulled this off of I'll put a link down there, 7deadlysins.com, and there's also a nice write-up on these on Wikipedia. Let's take a peek, why don't we? So what are they? Envy. Okay, envy is the desire for others' traits, status, abilities, and situation. And before I start listing these, what I'm asking the viewer, are these really wrong? When you look at this list, when I read this to you, is the seven deadly sins something that Christianity got right or wrong? My proposal is that they were spot on with these things. And if we would, as a 21st century modern church, and if we have more folks following or understanding these items on this list, I think we'd be better off. And I challenge you to decline that. So here, let's go through the list, and I'll let you know. And there's actually 7 virtues that this wonderful table on Wikipedia shows, and I'll again, the link will be down there. But so envy is the desire for other stuff. How have we seen that on Instagram? All these Instagram things, and this statusing that we have on social media. It's to the point. It's to a fever pitch these days. Okay, gluttony, an inordinate desire to consume more than that one which one requires. So hold on, I'll read that again. The desire to consume more than that which one requires. That's a tortured sentence if I ever heard one. Anyway, gluttony. I don't think any of us could potentially think that this is a good thing. We talk about the rich, and their sins of hoarding. I don't really demonize the rich much in my brain because it's related to the first one. I think a lot of these riots and things that we're seeing online is a lot of envy going on. I think the desire for, when you see, when young people will do these calculations of like how many airplanes or how many football teams can Jeff Bezos buy. He could buy like the whole NFL and then 2 aircraft carriers or whatever. The thing is, that is an element of envy, because we're looking at all the stuff he can do, and you might say, well, no, Joe, we want them to use that money for good. This is an economic situation, right? If we all know that those are not real assets, that he kept sell a bunch of them, and by the time he did, it wouldn't be worth much, close to what he has. So, economics aside, gluttony is something that I see on all sides of the political spectrum, all the sides, and it's an abomination. When I see people burning money, I've seen a lot of videos online where rich folks will be burning money, and I'm like, that is so sinful. I even saw one where a guy was throwing money on the streets for people to get, and it felt degrading to me as well. It's not gluttony, but it's, they're groveling for funds, and it just had a bad look to it. Let's go to the most controversial one on this list, lust. Now, the sexual revolution happened. People love lust, right? It's like, oh, don't hold back lust from me. This is the problem with these Puritan Christians. I will position to you one comment. Rashida Jones has done a lot of work against pornography, and wondered aloud, and in many, she has a Netflix special on it. And my question is, well, let's read the definition really quick. Lust is an inordinate craving for the pleasures of the body. And I think porn the saturation in our culture and its free availability is something that we can, I think, almost all agree, even those that are not in the Christian political or even the Judeo-Christian or Muslim traditions, are really super excited about. So can you atheists or folks who are not sure argue with a conviction that this ubiquitous porn is a good thing? I don't think you can. So once again, that's kind of 3 for 3 all of a sudden. Envy's not, we're not big on envy. Gluttony is not good, and lust, inordinate desire. It's okay to like desire according to your, likes. I mean, that's just a human thing. We're not saying you can't. I had, when I met my wife, and we won't even go into that because it's very uncomfortable. But lust is a thing. It's a human thing, and I embrace it. But that's, I think, more of passion than a lust. So I actually misspoke there. I don't necessarily embrace lust, because that's inordinate craving or inordinate desire. I embrace passion and sexual attraction. That's different. So again, and I'm hearing more and more. It's quite encouraging, more and more about nuance in our conversations. So I'm taking a little extra time with this video to do that nuance. Now we got a couple more. I'm going to go a little faster because I think you get the point, right? These things are spot on. Anger, we kind of, anyone who's had a television on or like news, anger is a destructive force. It is not, and it is manifested in the individual who spurns love and opts instead for fury. It's also known as wrath. I'm sorry. This is what we're seeing on the streets of America and the country. That's fury, and it's destructive, and it's sinful, because it only brings more of itself. It breeds itself, because now you got the other side pulling guns on the other side. You got people punching each other in targets. It's evil. Okay, it's sin. Greed. I think we've already covered that kind of with gluttony and greed. They're very similar. But I like what the person said here, is the desire for material wealth or gain, ignoring the realm of the spiritual. Okay, pretty straightforward. Sloth, and this is the avoidance of physical, and hear this, and I really like this addition, or spiritual work. How much work are you doing spiritually? Humans, 98% of us are believing in something. And I know you might say, well, I'm an atheist. Are you really, though? I mean, it's some people, they'll call up to the universe, or they'll do other things that some even say that some of these social movements that are gaining steam are really more religious movements. So humans tend to be religious, and don't forget that. What are the 7 virtues? So we have chastity. That's a purity. We could debate what that means. Temperance. We want to have our, be sober about what our processes and what we're doing, and how we carry ourselves in life. Charity, diligence, patience, kindness, and humility. All right, so just to wrap this up, when you read through that, I read through this and I'm thinking, my goodness, I remember I did this recently. I'm like, this is a list of, if we were to follow this, if we were to actually go down this line and say, we're going to try to avoid the 7 deadly sins and try to, and by the way, deadly doesn't mean you die. Deadly means it stunts your growth spiritually. It stunts your growth. So you partake in these sins, and what happens? You become less than you could be. And that is all that open theology and this idea of God is growing. I mean, God is growing us, and God responds to us, and gave us a ton of free will to pursue these things. So we have the freedom to not grow, and that is what a sin is. That's what these 7 sins are about. They stunt our spiritual growth. They stunt who we could be. So to bring it to an end here, take a moment, look at some of the resources in the comments there, and give Christianity a new look, because I think what we're seeing in our society shows the bullet holes, to use a terrible metaphor, of what we're missing. We're showing, it's the holes that have been shot into what we think is Christianity, when it really isn't that anymore. Take a fresh look at it, look at the links, and comment below, and we'll see if we can advance this conversation of what Christians are beyond this stereotype that I think the certain groups have painted us. Thanks for watching, and talk to you later.